Welcome back. It is always a good day when I wake up, I give thanks, and I know that today is a day that I get to introduce you to an extraordinary person with just an amazing story, with how he came to being sort of like the king of grief. This guy is helping thousands of people on a daily basis. Before I introduce you to John, just a quick housekeeping thing. My gosh, the podcast, I just checked this morning, 29% were up on downloads. So if you don't think it matters, it really does. I mean, when I started this podcast, I had my mother-in-law listening and on an occasion, a good friend. So I had like 5 listeners, and then it grew and it grew and it grew. And now we're up to literally thousands of people that are tuning into the next room. So thank you so much. The countries, United States, obviously, Canada, Australia is a big market for me, the UK, France, Ireland, Italy, Germany, the Netherlands, and India just came on board. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep sharing, keep downloading. If you prefer to watch podcasts, which I know a lot of people do, please check out my YouTube channel. It's brand new. It's The Next Room with Jane. And I appreciate you guys watching the show as well as listening. Okay, that's all out of the way. Let's get to today's guest. I met John years ago, and just through the circles that we both travel in, because obviously the next room to me, death is dinner conversation. And I saw this young man and he was doing a video and I was like, oh my gosh, he's so stripped down. He's so authentic and he's so real. And his pain was right there, it was vibrating off of him. But at the same time, John gave me hope. He gave me hope that no matter what we go through on the planet, we can break through, use that pain to benefit another human being. And that's exactly what he does. John Polo is my guest today. You can find him at johnpolocoaching.com. Of course, I'll post all the links so you don't have to go searching the internet for him. It'll be easy to find in the show page. John, welcome to the next room.
Thank you for having me back. It's so good to see you again.
It's so good to see you. John, you are, you're uplifting. You seem to have this connection with your following, and it's growing so much so from the first time that we connected to seeing you now and seeing what you do and the videos that you post on Facebook. It's crazy what you're doing for people. Let's talk a little bit about why grief. In 2016, you had to say goodbye to the love of your life, Michelle. So let's just go back and talk about what and how that affected you. And then now here you are in 2023, and you're really starting to uplift and help people with this grief journey you've been on.
Yeah, so we were high school sweethearts, and she broke my heart in high school. We lost all contact for 7 years, and then she emailed me after 7 years. We talked for a whole year. She finally came to visit me. We admitted to ourselves and each other that we had always loved each other, and we started building a life together. 2.5 years after that, she got diagnosed with one of the worst cancers in the world, and she fought it for 2.5 years before she passed away.
Mm.
My anticipatory grief was otherworldly. I was grieving so hard, really, from the day she was diagnosed, because it was clear that she wasn't going to make it through this. And throughout the 2.5 years, I mean, I describe it as hell on earth.
Mm.
And then I lost her, and obviously I did not know what to do with myself in any way, shape, or form. And the truth is, for a very long time, I didn't want to survive it.
Mm.
I didn't know how to survive it. I didn't think I would survive it, and I didn't want to survive it. A month after she passed, a friend suggested I start a blog, knowing that writing is something that, was helping me while she was sick. And I did. I did it with a matching Facebook page, and it was just raw grief at that point, just raw emotion. But as I started to get back up on my feet, as I started to have moments where maybe I caught myself smiling or laughing or had a moment of hope, the page began to shift a little bit, where I still talked about grief and hardcore grief because I was experiencing it. But if you were following the page, you also got to see some of these other things. And long story short, it just continued to take off. Eventually, I saw that I could help people. And that's what I did. I put out my first book. I started the coaching. I became a public speaker. And ever since then, it's just grown.
That's the whole widowed series. You've written so many books about how to date a widow, widowed, 1, 2,
Right.
and that brings us to a brand new book that you just put out with a co-author, Carolyn Gower, and it's called The Stupid Shit People Say to Grievers.
Right.
Right away, I'm in because
Mhm.
I just had this conversation with a gentleman that was on the show a couple weeks ago, and he said the very same thing. You know, people are uncomfortable
Mhm.
with when people are going through grief and they don't know what to say. So
Right.
tell me how you connected with Carolyn and how the book came to be, and some examples of the stupid shit that people say.
Yeah. So Carolyn was a client of mine. And probably the third or fourth session, I looked at her and I said, I think you have the ability to coach people. And she had
Mm,
told me that she had like taken some life coaching courses earlier on in her life. And, a few weeks after that, she said, I think I want to try to coach people. So I kind of worked with her on how to build her coaching business. Long story short, we became friends that process and we started a podcast together. The third episode of our podcast was called The Stupid Shit People Say to Grievers. And we both posted on our social media pages, hey, if anyone has said something stupid or mean to you, share it with us. We'll talk about it in the podcast. We
mm.
were overwhelmed with comments. The volume of comments, like I think I had to sit down for like 4 hours just to read them all
Wow.
on my page, let alone what she had to do on her page. And also what people had heard, because we all know about like the typical ones, right? We know about like, oh, you're young, you'll find love again.
Mm,
We know about the platitudes, like, and those are in this book. Like, we definitely
right.
put the typical ones in the book,
They're in a better place.
right? But we were
Mhm.
blown away at some of the other things said. Some of the things that, like, literally, I have done almost 5,000 coaching sessions. I've met thousands and thousands of grieving humans, and my jaw was on the floor reading some of these comments.
Oh, you have to share. Please share with my audience.
The two that stick into my mind the most, and there's a lot, but the two that I just like, I can't. I like, what were these people thinking? So the one is, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here because I don't want to
Sure.
like fumble through the book to find the pages.
I
The
gotcha.
one was a mother who lost her son, and I believe he was about 6 months old.
Mm.
Could be wrong on that, but I think that's my memory is correct. And somebody said to her, don't worry, it's probably for the best. He might have grown up to be a murderer or something. Like, right? Like, yeah, like,
What?
right.
Oh my
And the
God.
thing is, like,
Oh,
is
that's
that
horrible.
is that an extreme comment? Of course, an extreme comment, but
Wow.
there's a lot of extreme comments in this book, and there's probably 3,000 more comments that we left that we didn't
Mm.
put in the book, right? So it's not just the typical stuff. Sometimes people say things that are so stupid, or yes,
Wow.
even mean. The other one that really sticks into my mind is a woman lost her husband, and a couple weeks after the funeral, I think it was her boss said to her, don't worry, your husband's in heaven now. He's happy. He probably has another girlfriend. I don't understand. So
Wow.
I think that my
Hmm.
theory about this is we do live in a society that doesn't really understand grief.
Mm.
We definitely live in a society that is uncomfortable with grief. I never, ever, ever expected anyone to understand my grief. Never.
Hmm.
What I always expected is everyone, especially those in my life, to respect my grief.
Mm.
There
That's
is a profound difference, and it's very easy to respect someone's grief, even if you can't understand it.
Gosh, John, I love that. You didn't expect someone to understand your grief. You expect someone to respect your grief.
Right.
Oh, I'm
Yep.
turning that into a meme, a John Polo meme. That's
Yep.
really good. Good.
Yep.
Thank you for that. So through all these crazy things, these stupid things that people say, um, do you give solutions or do you give opportunities to say something different or to shift. I mean, because we need to educate
Yeah.
individuals about what to say and how to communicate with those that are grieving deeply.
Right. Absolutely. So I'm going to start with the platitudes and then I'll get directly to your question. One of the
Okay,
things we
good.
say about platitudes in this book is we kind of outline why they're usually unhelpful. In my theory on platitudes is I want to say it about my own loss, I'm entitled to say that. But please
Mm,
don't bring them to my door. You know that they're in a better place. Well, I'm actually a very spiritual person and I believe that my wife, Michelle, is in another life at peace. But that's my belief. Don't bring it to my door because the truth
right.
is that does not make up for the fact that in this human experience that I'm living, she's dead and she's not with me,
Mm,
right? And where I want her here with me in the physical form. That's the first thing I'll say. In the book, we do absolutely give tips. We give tips to the grieving person. How do you handle it when somebody says something stupid or mean to you? And by the way, what's the difference between stupid and mean? Because there is a difference.
hmm.
And we also give tips to the person who want to support a grieving person. One of the things that we outline is open the door for them to speak about the person that they've lost. Tell them, I want to hear about your son, Joey, right? I want to hear about your wife, Jennifer. If you ever want to share a funny story or a memory with me, grab a cup of coffee. Tell me about times that you guys experienced together. I would love to hear it.
Mm,
So many grieving people have that deep inner desire. They just want to say their name, they just want to talk about them. Opening that door is so much better than giving them a platitude or saying something really stupid or dumb or mean.
right. No, I love that. And I encourage that. I really know from doing this show and just intuitively how I feel with my losses is I want to tell stories. That's
Mhm.
how we keep the love and the memory alive, is sharing the great or funny or silly or ridiculous things that perhaps that person did while they were here in the human form. And I just don't want people to shy away from that. So that's a great point. Very
Yeah.
good point. And I also love what you said about you're allowed to say it.
Mhm.
It's your grief. And if you want to say Michelle's in a better place, and I clearly feel that Michelle is in heaven or in nirvana or in the next room, that's fine because that is you and that is your person. That was your wife that you had to bury, not someone else's. So
Right.
those are great points, John. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I just a big believer. Like you can say whatever you want about your own loss as far as platitudes. Just again, don't bring it to my table. Right.
Right,
Like
right.
if I want to say that, I'm entitled to say it. But other people saying it to me is not helpful. And it minimizes the pain. It
Yeah,
minimizes the pain of her not being here in the physical world anymore.
right. Wow. The stupid shit people say to grievers. That's just I'm still reeling from the 6-month-old baby,
Right.
and why do you suppose that individuals is it that we just as a society just can't handle pain? And so it's a mechanism, things fly out of our mouths that we're not even aware of?
I think that's one of the things. I think that people don't think before they speak, which we
Mm.
should. It's what separates us from being 4 years old still. And I think this society is very grief illiterate. I just
Mm,
don't think we understand. I have to give this example. Sometimes after a mass shooting in this country, I'll be watching the news and the news person will say, it's going to take a while for this community to heal. And I'm just thinking, like, how much of time do you think it's going to take? Because they're going to be living with this trauma and this pain and this loss the rest of their life. It's not going away in 2 months or 4 months. Grief
right.
changes. Absolutely. Grief
Yeah.
evolves. Absolutely. But we're grief
Mm.
illiterate. We don't understand not only the depth and the magnitude of the loss, but the ripple effects that come with
Yeah.
such a loss.
Mm. So what can we do? I mean, you're doing it, through education and coaching and putting pen to paper with Carolyn.
Yep.
Um, but what else can we do to understand? and help one another through the process of grieving, because it doesn't go away. You know
Right.
that. I know that. It's not something you pack away in a nice little package and put on the shelf and pull down when the next person dies.
Right.
It permeates through everything.
Right.
What do we do?
Well, well, I think those of us that understand grief, and not only grief, but healing and rebuilding, and all, the fact that we all have the ability to find our smile again and life again, doesn't mean that the grief is going to go away fully. Of course not, but that it changes and it evolves. Those of us that understand it, I think we speak out about it more.
Mm,
I think we write books. I think we post on social media, because there's so much disinformation out there. There's so much that's wrong about what people say or think with grief. And we're not going to be able to cure that. We know that. There's
mhm.
always going to be grief is
Stupid
always going to
people.
be, yeah, and it's always going to be misunderstood. But all
Right.
we can do is continue to put out the truth and hope that it reaches, a decent amount of people. That's all we
Yeah.
can continue to do.
Yeah. Well, bravo, because, what you're doing really is resonating. And I love that you just put it out there. Can we please, or would you share with us the story of the dress?
Yeah.
Because that's probably one of the most painful things I've ever read about, but also at the same time was really quite beautiful.
Yeah. So I proposed a year into our relationship, and we kind of like knew a little bit about where we wanted to get married and stuff, but we weren't actively planning it yet. We just kind of enjoying the engagement. Michelle got sick a year after I proposed,
Mm.
and we ended up rushing to the courthouse to get married before her first surgery. We wanted it to be legal before she went in. It was going to be an 8-hour surgery, for all the obvious reasons. And she was incredibly sick that day. I mean, she was throwing up. She was in so much pain. So all these happy couples are at the courthouse getting married, and I'm sitting there waiting for them to call our name while she's running back and forth to the bathroom, just thinking to myself, I can't believe I'm about to lose the love of my life twice.
Wow.
And my amazing wife is enduring all of this emotional and physical distress. So we went back, we did the vows. As soon as we were done, we rushed to the emergency room where we would stay for 5 days until her first surgery. When the cancer came back, we decided to plan a real wedding. It was going to be like a beautiful little ceremony downtown Chicago with family and friends. She died 2 weeks before the wedding.
Mm.
So about a week after she passed, I was laying in bed and I had her phone and I was scrolling through like her pictures and stuff. And I saw the picture of her in the wedding dress that I had never seen before, because obviously she was waiting until we got married. And I just sat there crying and laughing and feeling all types of things. She would beam. Like, my wife was she was the complete opposite of materialistic. She didn't care like about brand names or anything, but she adored herself in that wedding dress. She would always tell me like, you are gonna, I look so beautiful in it. She would say she looked like a
Mm,
princess. And again, that was not her nature. She was a very humble person, but she would say she
mm.
looked like a princess in it. And I'm sitting there in the bed just looking at this picture, again, laughing, crying. And I made a post about it, and it went pretty viral. I think it touched a lot of people.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, 2 weeks before the wedding, and in the fact that that picture was there,
Hmm.
that you had that, to be able to write about that, and it's almost like she left you a little gift
Yep.
because you needed to see her in that dress. She needed to see you looking like a little princess, you
Right.
know? Ah,
Yep.
just a beautiful post. Um, what's next for you? I mean, you seem to be just pedal to the metal, full steam ahead with helping individuals. What gives you the most pleasure? Is it the writing? Is it the speaking? Um, what is it that you want to do, John
I
Polo?
love that question. Nobody has asked me that question. And it's interesting because, like, there is this deep soul level passion. It's
Okay.
not like even an intellectual thing. It's not, about money. I really don't care about money. It's not about attention. I'm actually an introvert. I don't like the camera. But there's a deep soul level type passion to help people. And I think I've been doing that with my social media. I think with my books. I think with my coaching. My dream is to be a full-time public speaker. And I think I'm
Hmm.
slowly inching my way there. I do like the in-person more than the virtual.
Hmm.
I like that connection. But yeah, that's my dream. And again, that's what I'm trying to work towards. And I think that it gives me the biggest reach to try to help people as well.
Yeah. Let me just say it's happening. It
Yeah.
definitely is happening. It's where you need to be. I mean, just from watching you and your videos on your social, and um, you really do need to be on a stage live with an audience. I see that happening for you. So good. Um, what else about the book that you did with Carolyn really resonates? Like, are you seeing, are people reaching out and saying, oh my gosh, this book is, it's making me laugh and cry at the same time because of the lack of awareness of
Right.
those with people that have gone through deep grief?
I think one of the things that we're seeing for sure is that it's surprising people
Okay.
because of the title. I think that they think that's all they're going to get. And we've included so much more in there. Heartfelt stories, words of wisdom about grief. So there's a lot more in it. I create all my books in a very easy to read format. So I'm getting a ton of messages that says, I sat down and I read it in 45 minutes and oh my God,
Good.
it was amazing. Um, the book is obviously full of stupid comments and quite honestly mean comments that people say, but we really try to make this book an uplifting thing, right? We try to do it so that you're going to read this book, and if you're a grieving person who's experienced some of this stuff, you're going to realize you're not alone.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with the way you were grieving. And if you're not a grieving person, hopefully you're going to read this book and want to do better. We're not trying to shame anybody. We're trying to motivate people to want to do better. And I got to tell you, I had a lot of loss in my life before my wife. I had, family, friends, cousins, grandparents, aunts, uncles, my dad in 2008, and he was my best friend and my hero. I was 24 when he passed. I didn't understand grief. Even after my dad died, I didn't understand grief until my wife died. And I'm not saying that like people who lost a parent don't understand. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm talking about my particular situation. Like I grieved hard for my dad, but I didn't understand grief like as a whole until I lost my wife. I could have never, ever, ever started this career back in like 2009 or 2010. My understanding for grief, not only because of my grief, but because of my career with the speaking and the 5,000 coaching sessions, has come so far, right? And again, I just think Carolyn and I both have this passion where we just want to shine a light on human pain, that grief is okay, but also that hope is real as well.
Hmm. You didn't understand grief. You feel you understand it now?
Yeah. I
Good.
remember thinking to myself after I remember thinking to myself after my dad died, looking at my mom and judging her. I did. I judged
Mm.
her for the way she was grieving.
Wow.
And now that it happened to me, I like to admit that now because I like to step into that because it shows that we can grow.
Yeah.
And that when people who don't understand grief, a lot of them do mean well. Not all of them, as we see in this book, but a lot of them do mean well. And we can educate people to do better.
Why would someone say something mean to someone that's already in deep pain and they're grieving a great loss? I don't get that. Like that would really bum me out.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
There's a page in the book, I'm going to paraphrase here so I don't have to find it. It says something along the lines, it's a quote from me. It says something along the lines of grieving humans aren't looking for special treatment. We just ask that you not make our life more difficult than it already is. And
Mm.
something as simple as saying something mean to a grieving person is making their life more difficult. They're already down and now you're kicking them while they're down instead of offering them a hand to get back up. They're
Yeah.
already questioning themselves. right? Because that happens when we're grieving. We start to question ourselves. We don't have our parent or our spouse or our best friend with us anymore to help support us. Now you're making them question themselves more.
Hmm.
Look, let's be honest. I mean, part of it is that we have all been guilty of being mean at some point in our lives. I think I'm an incredibly kind person. I've been mean at different points in my life, right? But the
Hmm.
other part of it is there's a lot of mean people out there,
Yeah.
right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of people who don't lean into kindness, who don't
Yeah.
live by kindness.
Hmm. Hmm. What else can we do, as a society? I just feel like it's time to break down the walls surrounding death. Everybody is so afraid about the word dead, and they died, and I had a death in the family. Everybody's dancing around it. Um, I think we're getting better. Do you have any tips for us to kind of, especially as Americans, I think we're a little buttoned down about the whole grieving process.
Right. Well, is your question more for the grieving person or the person who kind of wants to support the grieving person? Because I think those are two different answers.
Okay, give me both answers. Let's start with the grieving person.
I think for the grieving person, you have to empower yourself to grieve your own way.
Mm,
Too many people grieve the way that they think society wants them to grieve, or the way that their cousin Jenny thinks they should grieve.
okay.
If we were more open and honest with ourselves about our pain and our grief, we could then be more open and honest with other people about our pain and our grief,
Mm,
right? If we're
yeah.
not, if we're hiding it, how is society ever going to really fully understand the pain?
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like, let's say I
yeah.
never started that blog and talked about my pain, which is fine, right? Like, but let's just
Right.
say I never did that. There would be a whole lot less knowledge out there about grief because you wouldn't have my 4 books or my,
Right.
50,000 social media posts. So I think empowering yourself to grieve your own way is huge. And I also think it's huge for you. When you empower yourself to grieve your own way, you're setting the stage. So once you want to start rebuilding and actually living again, now you're empowered to
Mm,
rebuild your own way and to live again your own way. As far as the person who wants to help the grieving person or the person who just wants to know about grief more, I think listen more.
mm,
Like, listen more. Don't hope for the answer you hope for. Don't have a conversation where you know what you want to say in return and you're just waiting for them to stop talking so you can say it. Listen to someone's actual pain. Listen to the hope that they may have. Listen to the memories that they want to share. When we
that's
just
good.
listen, when we're just
Yeah.
present and we just listen, one of the most helpful things that anybody has done for me since Michelle died was my sister. I won't tell the whole story because it's kind of long, although it is in the book. I was just sobbing one day uncontrollably, and she just sat there, rubbed my back. She didn't
Mm,
say anything. She didn't try to have the perfect words. She didn't try to comfort me. She just sat there and rubbed my back and let me allow it to all come out in that moment.
wow. She showed up.
Yep.
She showed up. And by just allowing you to be in your pain without trying to fix it,
Hmm.
that's really good. John Polo coaching.
Hmm.
Is it just grief that you're helping people through, or this life coaching, a pivot, a new direction? What is it that you're coaching?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I started, it was just going to be grief coaching.
Okay.
It quickly evolved. So I would have someone come to me for grief and okay, now we want to start looking at rebuilding. Especially for widowed people, the question, who am I now? Right? Because I think when they die, a big part of us goes with them. So not only rebuilding your life, but starting to get to know the new version of yourself again, rebuilding someone's self-esteem, their self-worth, make sure that they're not self-sabotaging. What happens when we go back out into the dating world, right? Purpose, motivation. So it started as grief coaching, and now it is what I call grief, dating, self growth, and life coaching. Pretty much everything, any type of coaching you want.
That's good. I love it. Have you stepped back out there? Have you started dating again?
I have, yeah. i
Good.
I'm just over 7 years out. I was in a couple relationships that didn't work out. Still friends with those women. Think they're fantastic. Have been in a new relationship for almost 2 years now.
Ah, good for
Yep.
you. Good
Yep.
for you. That's really empowering too, because, now, you're walking the talk,
Yep.
How to Date a Widow is one of your books.
Yep.
Wow, John, I just have so many takeaways. I've been scribbling. Look at this pad of paper.
I like
All
it.
the
Yep.
notes. I really love, I don't expect you to understand my grief, but I expect you to respect my
Yep.
grief. That's just beautiful. And right here, listen, got a big box around listen. I love that your sister sat with you in your pain and didn't try to shift you out of it.
Right.
That's really beautiful. Okay, I told you this would go fast. I want to respect your time. I know you have a client in a half hour. In closing, do you want to leave us with any final words, or is there anything I didn't touch upon that you would like to share with the Next Room listeners?
I like to talk about hope when someone asks me that question at the end of a podcast,
Okay.
because my theory on that is nobody is inspired by somebody born on third base. I
Mm,
can come on here and I could talk about having 4 books and rebuilding my life and finding happiness again. I don't think anybody really cares unless they know where I came from, unless
mm,
they know that I felt shattered beyond belief after my wife died, unless they know that the thought of hope, when somebody would try to talk to me about hope as she was dying or after she died, I didn't only not believe it, it actually filled me with rage. It made me
mm,
so mad when somebody would try to talk to me about hope. I think it's important that I take people back to that so that when they see where I'm at now, if they're there, if they don't believe in hope, if they're completely convinced that they'll never survive this, let alone live again, right? That they know that it's possible, because all the grieving people that I have met who have somehow, some way got back up on their feet and started rebuilding again and have found happiness again. It looks very different, but have found their smile again. I have yet to meet one of them. I'm sure they're out there, but I have yet to meet one who actually thought that was going to happen. Like, who was like, oh, yeah, this will happen for me.
right.
The doubt, the doubt that you can ever get back on your feet, the doubt that you can ever rebuild, the doubt that you can ever find your smile again, I think is very real. And I want people to look at those of us who have done that as a testament that it can happen.
Mm, wow. Coming to a stage near you, John Polo. Seriously, I am so honored you would take time to come back on the Next Room. John Polo Coaching, brand new book, The Stupid Shit People Say to Grievers, with his co-author, Carolyn Gower. Also, he's got all kinds of other books, 4 other books on his website. If you want or are in need of coaching, I think that you can hear that this young man is really authentic and certainly can help you break through whatever it is that you need to break through. John, thank you so much for coming on the Next Room. I'm just so grateful.
Thank you. It's been awesome. Appreciate it.